43 in the
What is
Bureau.
what is CRT?
Critical race theory.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right, that's right.
We are we are now live, and let's see, we are now recording. Record to the cloud.
It looks like Paul is coming on, right?
Yes, he said he was here, but he is not all here.
Well, I do want to find out what's going on in Canada because I sure am excited about all those truckers.
Yes,
Paul, how you doing?
they're about to make it. Oh, pretty good. Feeling really up. Yesterday morning, I froze my toes off, but 2,000 people gathered along the trucking route in the Hamilton, the city I live in. It's about 535,000. 2,000 people at 10 in the morning. Unbelievable. The enthusiasm, and on every overpass along the highway that goes from the American border, from Niagara Falls past Hamilton toward Toronto, like it makes a U around the west end of Lake Ontario. And on every overpass, there were people. In some cases, 100, in some cases 30, 40, 50, freezing cold wind blowing at them, but the enthusiasm and the support, it's scaring the mass media. They've of course ignored the end of lockdown protests mostly for the past 2 years, or when they report on them at all. It's the usual collection of guys with the tin foil hats to ward off rays and conspiracy theorists or fanatical anti-vaxxers. That's the way they've generally dismissed these protests when they've had them at all. When they recognize them at all. Even though these protests have been in major cities every week, usually on the Saturday or Sunday, since late March or April of 2020. This is unprecedented, and it's now beginning to all come together on the in the nation's capital tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be really big, and the nonsense coming out of the politicians. Our trust fund kid prime minister said the people in this truckers convoy are a tiny minority. Well, it never bothered him to listen to tiny minorities like the transgendered before. So tiny minority is not much of a knock. And he said they have unacceptable ideas. So you have to have an acceptable idea.
Okay, but Paul, what I have a question is that you say all these people were standing on an overpass. Were they standing on the overpass as the convoy of trucks were going through, or were they standing on the overpass just when cars were driving back and forth?
Well, both, because it was not quite clear when the convoy would arrive. So we didn't have an exact, precise time, So yeah, people will be there an hour and a half. No, it's not just while the convoy went through, but that was the main purpose, to greet them and wish them on their way.
Okay, and now how many convoys were there? Were there just one long convoy, or were there convoys in different cities and different freeways?
Well, beginning last Sunday, one convoy began to work its way from Vancouver on the west coast across the prairies, and they were up. Well, they passed Thunder Bay a couple of days ago, so they're on their way to Ottawa. Another convoy is coming from the Maritimes. Another convoy is coming from Quebec, and then there are several convoys coming out of Ontario. One from southwestern Ontario going down what we call the Highway 401, but that's the main drag from Detroit to Montreal. And another one coming out of Niagara. They're the ones we saw yesterday, and it is big.
Were the convoys made up almost exclusively of trucks, or were there individual cars that were joining and supporting it?
Yeah, both. The 18 wheelers mostly, but pickup trucks and also just individual cars. Uh,
And there are in America and probably in Canada too, very large trucking companies that have many trucks, 1,000 trucks. And in America, these large corporations are generally opposed to our views, and they toe the party line of what's going on with the establishment and the deep state. Do these trucking companies support the convoys, or are they only individuals? Are there large companies that are saying, yeah, you go out and do it, we're supporting you?
uh, Mostly smaller companies and individuals. The main trucking organization says truckers are 90% vaccinated, and we don't support the truckers convoy. So pretty much as in America, the main structures are in the clutches of the globalists or the careerists, and the careerists know that their career is improved by being sweet with government. But it's brought together a number of different interests. Like some of the participants say, we're fully vaccinated, but we oppose forced vaccination. We oppose what we call up here mandates. There's a mandate for that, which basically means state imposed requirement. And see, it's amazing on the trucks. So many of them have that word freedom. That's what people want. And yes, we want an end to all mandates. So no more forced vax, no more forced masking, no more people losing their jobs because they're not vaccinated. And so the underlying notion is freedom. And our trust fund kid prime minister, one of his zingers earlier in the week was this was a fringe movement. And I saw a sign yesterday, and it wasn't mass produced. I think several people came up with exactly the same wording, and it's a four words that says it all. Freedom is not fringe. Freedom is not fringe.
Very good.
But it is for our establishment. It is for the political elite, which have vacuumed away freedom to practice your religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, freedom to run your flipping business, freedom not to reveal your medical condition. Whenever I'm challenged about vaccination passport, I said, well, listen, I'll reveal that information if you tell me the results of your last STD test.
Okay.
Which we used to call venereal disease, but
right.
They get the point.
Well,
Have you got COVID?
No, I just have a cold. One of the highest profile Canadians living in this country is Neil Young of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And he has, I think, did a long time ago, did a freedom of speech rally or a tour or something like that. And then now he just came out a couple of days ago saying, either you remove my stuff from Spotify, or Spotify, you remove Joe Rogan, who's spreading anti-vax propaganda that's a lie. And so Spotify said, okay, well, goodbye, Neil Young. And so there has been a lot of discussion in the various websites, pro and con. And what I just saw an email, a meme that says, the young people say, who is Neil Young? The middle-aged people say, is Neil Young still alive? And the old people say, what is Spotify? And so, Neil Young, at least from the websites that I read, has really been excoriated for his anti-free speech stance by forcing Spotify to pick and choose, and they chose this fellow by the name of Joe Rogan.
Well, yes, we followed that with glee. I knew him mostly as a kind of a mushy leftist, but there he was trying to use what weight he had to cancel somebody else out, and that's wrong. You don't have to listen to Joe Rogan. You don't have to listen to Neil Young, but he was trying to force Spotify into making a choice, and I suspect they made the choice for the one that attracts the largest audience. I guess Joe Rogan is very popular, I'm told.
Yeah. Now, is Neil Young still popular in Canada? Because he is a Canadian. And has this issue been in the papers in Canada?
Yes, but it's not been it has not become a cause célèbre. Yeah, it's a bit of news, and but I think for a lot of people, as you say, the young people say, "Who's Neil Young?" I'm like I knew who he was, but I'm not a great fan of early rock. Yes, but I like country and western. So I didn't see a huge uproar over it.
Well, now, are there people in Canada that are high profile that are really supporting this convoy? Because we don't see anybody that's really high profile here. It's just rank and file support.
There's a hockey player. He was on two Canada. He won two Olympic gold medals on a medal-winning team, whose name I only have heard once, and I can't give it to you right now. Who's supporting it? He'd be in his late 50s, so he's a star from yesteryear. Elon Musk is not Canadian, is he?
He's South African.
Oh, so okay. Well, Elon Musk and he's Tesla, right?
Yeah, Tesla and SpaceX and the Boring Company, a lot of them.
Well, amazingly, he's tweeted his support, and I mean, people know who he is, and of course, Tesla's big, and but I mean, it's kind of shameful that there aren't more high-profile Canadians. The one fairly high-profile Canadian is the leader of the People's Party of Canada, former Conservative member, Cabinet Minister Maxime Bernier. He's been at a lot of the end of lockdown protests. I saw him 3 times last weekend in Ontario, and a rally in Toronto, a rally in Port Credit, and a rally up in Waterloo. He said he would be with the truckers tomorrow, and some independent members of the Ontario legislature, like Randy Hillier, who's also been at the end of lockdown rallies. He'll be there too. It's put a lot of pressure on the Conservative Party leader, who's a mushy, you'd call him a country club Republican, but or a rhino. And
well, will this have an effect more than just a convoy for show? Will it actually disrupt the supply chain of food and products being delivered to the stores, or what's the actual effect going to be?
Well, we don't know. The sorry, official voices are saying, "Oh, the supply chain won't be disrupted." Who knows? The supply chain has already been disrupted before the truckers' convoy. Produce is in short supply in some grocery stores. Not everything is very sporadic as to what's missing and what isn't, and it's not entirely the fault of trucking in Canada. There's a North American supply chain problem. The bigger question is what's going to happen in Ottawa, because if they have a couple of thousand trucks, the city is so constructed that it'll be shut down in a gridlock. Now, what are they going to? They say they will stay there until the government abolishes all the mandates. Now, the problem is, as in the United States, there's a division of power between the federal government and the provinces. So the federal government, even with the best of goodwill, could only get rid of some of them, but that'd be a start. The government has said that it's not going to budge, but it may depend on just how many people they get up there and how much disruption. We have a minority government, so if two of the opposition parties bolts against and demands change, and that would be big if that happened. we could see major problems. They vastly underestimated the strength of this movement, and some of the reporters who actually get out of the studio and look around were flabbergasted at the public support right across the country. I have a good kind of small religious story. The Hutterites in Manitoba said, well, they were going to feed they were going to set up in the city of Winnipeg and feed the truckers as they came through. So the RCMP, Sergeant Preston of the Yukon, who never got his man, thought, okay, we'll fix them. They wouldn't let them into Winnipeg. So what the Mennonites, the Hutterites did, they piled all their cooking gear, all the food into pickup trucks, and they raced to Kenora in northern Ontario, which would be about 3 hours east of Winnipeg. And they greeted the truckers there with a massive feast. And it's this type of support at right along the route, and the media has had to notice this. This isn't just one odd guy with a sign or a flag. This is massive, and a lot of it's spontaneous. It isn't people getting on the phone and saying, all the members of my committee have to be out there at 8 a.m. With their signs and flags. I mean, a lot of this is just spontaneous, and that crowd in Hamilton, I would say about 60% were women, 75% were young. Now, I'm bad on ages, but I'd say under 30. It was, and see, the Prime Minister earlier said that the truckers, the end of lockdown movement, the freedom movement, are racists and misogynists. They throw out the usual abusive terms of people say, "Oh no, don't call me that." Well, it's hard for me to understand how you can have a misogynistic crowd that is 60% women. They're not also.
You talk about the support. I read that there was a GoFundMe effort to raise money to help pay for, the gasoline or the diesel and the truck mileage is all very expensive, and they raised well into the seven figures, and GoFundMe shut it down.
Yes and no. As of these figures are a day out of date, but as of yesterday, press time for my morning paper, they raised $6.5 million from 78,000 plus donors. Just to put that in some perspective, in the last election, the ruling Liberal Party, through fundraising, raised a little over $3 million from 33,000 donors. Now,
wow,
78,000. I'm wondering how I can get in on that. We could fund our news network, but that's impressed a lot of people. $6.5 million since the I think it was the 15th of January. This has not been a campaign that it was hectoring donors by emails, and it's all spontaneous. Now
that means they gave an average of $83 a person.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Because for the 78, the 6.5 million, 78,000 donors.
Yeah.
Wow. Because my understanding is an awful lot of people gave 10, 15, 10, 20, 25. It's a lot of small, but those numbers are fantastic. Considering that it was done more or less overnight. Now, GoFundMe came under some pressure. We're not sure who, but I can pretty much guess. The dirty minority hands there, and I don't mean Eskimos. Anyway, GoFundMe said, well, they weren't sure how the organizers have to have a better plan as to how to distribute the money. So anyway, they're working on that. They have released about $1 million worth. So it wouldn't be quite true to say GoFundMe shut them down, because you can still donate. And because this is not political, as in a political party, William Johnson could send them some money. It's another thing is American truckers are crossing the border to support them. Thousands. Well, we're told. Let's just, without exaggerating, say large numbers are coming up from Colorado, Georgia. I'm leaving someplace out there, but there is considerable, brotherhood support.
Wow, that's very good. And Charles, I was very interested in this. I'm sorry for taking over your role and ask all these questions.
Okay.
I'll turn it back over to you now. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean, it's all connected. Every time we go on a tangent, it always brings up interesting subjects. I was going to ask Paul about whether he thought that the prime minister's statement about racism, does that give us more credibility that it's racist to support truckers?
Yeah. I think the term has been used so promiscuously, and is the go-to denunciation for much of our elite that it's losing some of its bite. And so yes, that helps us. If supporting a trucker makes you a racist, well,
Yeah,
that makes an awful lot of people racists.
yeah. Oh,
Okay, I sent you all this. I don't know if anybody got a chance to look at it. And I was hoping that Sam Dixon would join us, but I guess he hasn't. As of yet, I'll call him and see if he wants to join tomorrow. But this is, I think, one of the most interesting concepts that I've come across in ages, because it's related to a phrase that is basically slang younger than I am, but it's slang that I totally understand. Should we own our racial identity? Do we own our racial identity? This is a totally beautiful Black woman. Let's see if I can bring up a picture of her. Totally beautiful Black woman. Can you all see her?
no.
No.
Okay, hang on. I have to stop share and start over again, I guess. Yeah, here she is. Cheryl Harris. Isn't that a beauty?
Okay.
Don't we all wish we had her right around?
Maybe I can take a screenshot and blow it up and put it on my office wall.
Anyhow, it's that's Cheryl Harris, and she is the author of a truly interesting article, which, let me see if I can bring that up again. Where did that go now? Yes. Whiteness. Whiteness is property. This comes from a very elaborate article, very Harvard Law Review almost 30 years ago. I'd call it proto CRT, critical race theory. And obviously her purpose in writing this was to trash the notion that white people should own their identity. And I ask, is this basically one of those instances where we kind of need to adapt the philosophy of those who purport to be our enemies, and say, wow, you've got a point there. We do own valuable intellectual property in calling ourselves white. This is our trademark. This is our patent on civilization. And can we basically transform this? I mean, Paul, you weren't with us on Sunday, but Bill and I met with a very interesting black fellow here in New Orleans that I happen to know, named Lloyd Kelly, and I'm thinking of having him back on either Saturday or Sunday. But I wanted to talk to you all about this concept. I think the very first time I ever met Lloyd, he and I started talking about race, and he said, white people just need to shut up about race. They don't need to talk about it at all because they don't understand it. And anyhow, I thought that was a very challenging thing to say. And he's basically saying that Black people own their racial identity. But if Black people own their racial identity, can you take away our owned intellectual property, our ownership of our identity, without violating the Fifth Amendment? No takings of private property without just compensation.
Well, I think it's true that the Blacks do profess to own their identity, their heritage. I mean, just when we talked with this Mr. Kelly fellow and the others we talked to that want reparations for what their ancestors went through slavery. So they're claiming a tangible economic benefit from their heritage and their Blackness. And I think that if the whites take possession of their own racial identity again, I mean, then someone who spins their, that spins their seed with non-whites, that would be larceny on the part of the half breed person born from there, because they're taking our heritage, they're taking our whiteness, and they're putting it in a mixed race environment. I think that in previous generations where miscegenation was outlawed, it was indeed considered to be property. And so I guess this article is saying that we should not claim it as property, but other races should. Is that what the gist of the article is?
Well, I mean, it's saying that we have used our identity as a form of resource, as a form of right, automatic right to white privilege, I guess. I mean, we probably need to read it and discuss it in some detail, but it's a very elaborate claim to identity, and that we are abusing our identity, or that we abused it in the past. And I mean, if it's real, if it's real, and I mean, I think that basically my thought is that this could become a rallying cry. We own our skin. We own our identity. This skin is actually very much like a trademark. It implies qualities that do not, what you said, Bill, a month or two ago, that white blood is precious and that there is no other race that has the identity, the constellation of qualities ranging from, you were talking about Handel singing Handel's Messiah as part of your family Christmas ritual. To a friend of mine in Austin was talking about how his daughter wants to learn Wagnerian opera. I mean, these are things that go with that flag behind Paul, that originated in the mosaic behind me. Our civilization is inextricably intertwined with whiteness.
Well, if you put it in more basic terms, then yes, I mean, we have a stewardship passed down from our ancestors to be delivered to our descendants to keep our race white. And that's true. I often get criticized by people when I say that, yes, there is white privilege, and I experience it all the time, particularly the mainstream Republicans or others. They will deny that there's white privilege. White privilege doesn't exist, but I experience it all the time. And the reason why I experience it is not because that I think that I am better than everyone else. It's because the other races think that whites are better than everyone else. I mean, in the past, I've gone into in the East LA, where it's primarily Hispanic area, and I'll go to a little used Hispanic restaurant by anyone other than their local group, whether it's El Salvadorian food or whatever it is. And I walk in, and sometimes I walk in with my white family, and they immediately treat me a little bit better than everybody else. And I think, well, it's probably because they're flattered that a white family will come into their little store. And I see this. I think that the real white supremacists are non-whites, because they think that we are better than we are, frankly. And people ask me, well, do you think that the white is a superior race? Well, I think that in many respects we are way lagging behind, and we are very much inferior because we don't respect our heritage. I just saw today an article saying that the least racist country in the entire world is Holland, are the Dutch people. And the Dutch are the quintessential white people traditionally, and they have the least amount of racial consciousness. So in that sense, we lag behind way other races. And in that sense, we're defective.
I think Bill is really on to something. People, will accuse me of being a white supremacist, and I make a distinction. I don't want to rule anybody else. I don't want to be a supremacist like George W. Bush, but I'm a nationalist. I want my country for me. I mean, for my kind, my people. But I said, the white supremacists or the supremacists are those who say we're better. And look at who wants to come to Canada. Or conversely, or the United States, how many people are lining up in Washington, D.C. or Ottawa at the Haitian embassy or to say, well, I'm fed up with Canada or the United States. I want to go to Haiti. I want to become a citizen of Haiti. Or what about Gabon in Africa? Well, okay, you ask this question, people laugh, and I say, okay, well, what's so funny? Well, we want to go there. Well, why not? Well, it's not very good. Or in other words, as Donald Trump said, they're shithole states, right? Well, that's pretty strong. But yeah. So everybody knows we're better. The world wants to come here and to Western Europe. Nobody's trying to get into, half of Black Africa or Haiti or to live. No. So they're recognizing our superiority. We should also, without rubbing people's faces in it, that we are good. The other thing that I found, I must admit, I didn't read that woman's article. I didn't actually see it. I saw your reference, but I didn't see it. But one thing I think she's probably trying to play two contradictory concepts. Blacks have the right to their identity. Well, and I totally agree with that. On the other hand, whites don't, because we're told when it applies to us, race is just a social construct. Well, believe me, when it comes to getting the goodies in America or Canada, Native Indians know they're Native Indians. They don't confuse themselves with being black. Blacks know they're blacks. They don't suddenly think, well, man, I don't really feel black today. Maybe I'm actually Korean. No. I mean, everybody else has the right to their own identity and to be themselves. We're the only ones that are. I even get into arguments with idiots on Twitter. Well, are all Europeans white? Well, how do you even know somebody's white, or is a South Italian white, or is a people know their identity, and we should not only know our identity, we should be darn proud of it.
Well, I want to stress one more time, and I've stressed this in the past based on what you said. I want Haiti back.
You said that last week.
And if we take it back, I can tell you, in 20 years, it will be the jewel of the Caribbean. And again, it will be like, I think you maybe said this, Charles, that the French decided to keep Haiti and sell the Louisiana Purchase because Haiti was a better country, better colony than the Louisiana area was.
That's true. And we lost her. I lost her from the French side of my family. There were about 25,000 of my ancestors who were massacred in Haiti. Yeah, we want that country back. It was called at the time of that decision by the French, the Perle des Antilles, the pearl of the Antilles of the islands. It was immensely rich. The agriculture that our ancestors developed there with with methodology that would be primitive by modern means, but it was incredibly rich. I've been to Haiti and I've been flown over Haiti a number of times. Would you ever notice a difference when if the plane approaches from, I guess it's the west, no, the west, it flies over Haiti and then into the Dominican Republic and then down to the vacation spots. Haiti looks almost like a moonscape. The red soil and spindly little, what once were trees, they've just decimated their environment. Then you get to the Dominican Republic and you see more regular looking forests and grasslands, and then you get down to the sea level. I mean, the Dominican Republic, may not be a great ideal, but they've certainly not abused their land the way the Haitians have.
I heard
get it back, resettle it, send the Haitians back to Africa.
I heard, and I'm not sure this is true or not, that Port-au-Prince, which is the capital of Haiti, is the only major city in the world that doesn't have a sewer system. And so, boy, it's messed up. But yeah, I think that's going to be high on my list. When Trump taps me to be something in his cabinet, which he never will, one of my first my first job will be to dismantle the FBI. But my second job will be to take Haiti back for white people.
Well, yeah, in many ways, Haiti is fascinating. You remember the shake, rattle, roll back there in 2010, the big earthquake, and we had this huge conniption. Oh, we must do something. We meaning white people. And didn't George W. Bush and Bill Clinton throw in together? They were going to do all sorts of great things, and billions of dollars were raised. And then one of our papers did a follow-up the year later, January 2011. How have things changed? Well, there was this big fat Negro woman who was sitting on the steps of, I guess, a little bar or whatever. And out there in the street, there were still big chunks of concrete and stuff. And it was just a total mess. This is a year after the earthquake. And she was saying, oh, a lot of the aid didn't come here. And look, it's still a mess. And so on. I thought, well, wait a second. Why don't you get off your big butt and move some of that stuff? Do we have to wait for the Americans to come and do it? And I contrast that with stories some of my German supporters have told me, and I forget the name in German, but the women in Berlin after the war, being bombed to smithereens, these women with bare hands moved concrete and rubble person to person. That city was cleared in 6 months, mostly by human labor, mostly by women. That's the difference between us and them. That Haitian woman was sitting around waiting for, I don't know what, the Americans to do it, or the Canadians, or somebody else. That's why Haiti is hopelessly backward, and that's why Switzerland is fantastically wealthy.
Reality check, Bill.
Yes.
Last week we were talking to Lloyd, and you all were getting very close to a negotiated settlement, a buyout, basically, of segregation. I happen to know that Lloyd has a figure in mind, and so when we continue this, just if we continue with Lloyd, I want you to, try to tease it out of him. He doesn't want me to tell you how much he wants, but Is Haiti a more realistic topic? Would it be easier to buy Haiti out? Because don't vomit. Please don't vomit. Just because we're talking about Haiti, please don't throw up on the TV show. That will destroy our child-friendly rating.
Well, okay, first of all, I want to let you know that my negotiation technique is to not challenge anybody, but to take what they say. If they want to present these extreme arguments, now is not the time to be opposed to them. When you come down to the final analysis, then you start pushing back. That's why he was making all these ridiculous extreme claims. And so my response was, well, the only non-negotiable plank is that we don't want anything to do with Disney because it's such a nasty company. And so I skirted around all of his extreme claims. But what you do is you negotiate, you get all of their extreme claims, and you hold your position closer to the pocket. And then when it becomes a legitimate negotiation, then you've had a huge success because you brought it to the table to have a major discussion. And then at that time, you can point out the ridiculousness of extreme claims, and his dollar figure, whatever it is going to be ridiculous. But one point I want to make that goes on along the lines of what you're saying about how Haiti is so backwards. This Mr. Kelly, he was just saying, oh, the blacks will do so much. And he was just really saying that his black race could achieve so much or would achieve so much, but we're being held down. And I didn't challenge him on that. But then at the end, he said, when we said, well, he'd like to do this more. And I said, we'd like to take it on a national scale. So what happened? What was his response? He says, okay, white boy, you go ahead and arrange it. Use your money and your expenses and your connections to get this going on a grand scale. Instead of saying, okay, my race is so great, I'll step up to the plate and I'll make arrangements to make it happen. His knee-jerk reaction was let the white person do it, just like this overweight lady in Haiti. And so that's what we're dealing with when we deal with these people. I'm more than happy to talk with Mr. Kelly, and we'll have and I'll be avuncular, and we'll have a nice little conversation. But until it gets beyond the 185 viewers that we get in this show, or whatever it is, I know the 3,000 viewers we have, is not going to do more than just blow wind.
But something that you brought up, something that it reminds me of something that along those lines. When that big earthquake hit, I think in January 2010, something you didn't see was very, very rich American Negroes running to help. For instance, in those days, Tiger Woods was a billionaire. I don't know what he is today, but he was a billionaire there, and he was at the top of his career. Oprah Winfrey was a billionaire with her various enterprises. I didn't hear either of them say, let's band together and listen, I challenge you, Tiger, to put in 100 million, and I'll match you with 100 million. We'll challenge other people to come in big time to help our black brothers and sisters in Haiti. I didn't hear that. I heard dumb whites like the Clinton and Bush and many, many well-meaning widows and old ladies in Canada wanting to give money to help the Negroes in Haiti. I thought.
Well, we could buy large swatches of land in Africa. We could put mini homes on there, micro homes on there, little places with sewage systems and electricity, and we could make it a much better place than every Haitian has now. And you could, relocate them, with the 40 acres and a mule concept, and get them all out of Haiti, and then turn it over to not Disney World, but turn it over to the truckers, to the Canadian trucking companies and the individual people, and let them go there and turn Haiti into the, whatever the French word you call it, the jewel of the Antilles. And it would be that way in 30 years, 20 years. It'd be there in less than 20 years.
So would that be a realistic campaign?
Sure, that's the first step to create a white ethno state, take over Haiti. And then you'd have to protect your border against what's the other half of Hispaniola? Dominican Republic. Yeah, we have to build a wall to keep the Dominican Republicans out.
Well, yes, you just have to remember the chant in the 2016 election: "Build that wall."
Well, actually, what we need to do is not have baseball as a national sport, because I think all the Dominicans are coming over here playing baseball. So that's what we gotta do. No baseball in Haiti, and that'll stop it a little bit.
Well, I mean, Hispaniola is not that huge a place. If we actually succeeded in buying out Haiti, we might be able to slowly but surely buy out the Dominican Republic too.
Yeah, and boy, then that would be an ideal place.
Yeah, the Dominican Republic, about 20% of their population are white on a good day. Maybe
is that a generous definition of white, or is it a real definition of white?
Very generous. Very generous. 20. I would say 20% of the population is 50% white.
It's idiosyncratic. It's my limited experience. I mean, I've been there about 10 times, but I won't be hard and fast on that. You might be right. It might be fewer. But one of the interesting things is that although the Dominicans have resolutely tried to keep Haitians out, they haven't always been successful. But at the very, very bottom rung of Dominican society are the blacks from Haiti, and your color is your uniform. The Dominicans are extremely. I mean, they divide people up extremely narrowly by characteristics. For instance, among the mestizos, straight hair but darker skin is better than curly hair and lighter skin. I mean, they draw distinctions that most of us wouldn't. They're very race conscious, and they don't like the Haitians. I can speak enough Spanish to ask for a glass of water and whatever, but you get them when they feel comfortable with you, and they'll explain that their extremely low opinion of Haitians. Racism or race consciousness is there all over the world. It's only us that seem to have a big hang up about not being racially conscious or make negative comments about our neighbors.
Now, I don't want to, I guess, display my ignorance in the subject, but now, is the Dominican Republic a Spanish-speaking country and Haiti a French-speaking country? Is that how it works?
Yeah, the Dominican Republic is Spanish.
The French spoken in Haiti is almost unintelligible in Paris.
That's right. I had considerable trouble making myself understood. I was actually easier in English with taxi drivers and so on. I had an interesting. I went down there in the days of Baby Doc, so I asked the cab driver to take me to a couple of places, and I want to go to the embassy of the Republic of China, like Taiwan, because I had a contact. And when I went inside, the taxi driver was asking my wife, "Why is he going there? He's not Chinese." So, of course, the taxi driver's a police spy. Well, as a matter of fact, there was nothing, nothing really much to report. But it was an interesting place, and I saw the thinnest cats in the world. We stayed in Pétionville, which is like a classier suburb above the slums of Port-au-Prince, and we were eating supper. I noticed these ghostly, tiny, thin cats. So my wife and I chopped up a little bit of our chicken and whipped it out on the pavement for the poor things.
Okay.
It's so interesting. I mean, when you first mentioned this idea to me several years ago, I thought it was really wacky, but it's growing on me. I mean, I have a good friend who lives in the Dominican Republic, and he confirms everything Paul is saying about how they hate Haitians. Think of them as lower than these cats he's talking about. But isn't it interestingly symbolic if we were to try to make your dream real, that Hispaniola is where Europeans first settled in
Yes.
in the New World. It's where Columbus landed, built a city called Christmas, a settlement called Christmas. I guess it didn't really last long enough to be a city, but La Navidad in what's now northern Haiti, and then he went around and built a city called Isabella, which is still there, and then finally Holy Sunday, Santo Domingo, Easter, still the capital of the Republic, the Dominican
So
Republic.
let me get something straight. You're saying the very first European settlement and was Hispaniola, was in Hispaniola?
Discounting the Vikings.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
The
That's
first
interesting.
1492, Christmas of 1492 was celebrated on the north coast of Haiti.
Okay, that we have to take Haiti back. That's right.
One of the reasons the Haitians are disliked so much in the Dominican Republic, well, there's a lot of reasons, but after the French abandoned their settlers and the French settlers were massacred, the Haitians formed something like a government. Well, who's going to work the plantations? Well, they weren't going to do it. So they went across the border. They raided, which was then a Spanish colony. They raided the Dominican Republic, and they kidnapped thousands of people to work as, get this, slaves in Haiti for the blacks. Unlike so many of us who wouldn't know our history from 5 years ago, the Dominicans remember that. And boy, that's another reason they do not like Haiti. They remember what was done to their people.
They were enslaving the Hispanics.
Yes, 200 years ago, they remember. I think we have we have a big mission to educate our own people about our history. The province of Quebec has an interesting motto on its license plate, and it says "Je me souviens," which is "I remember." And I think it's a worthwhile motto for us to educate ourselves. Well, I think all three of us are fairly educated, but to educate our children, our grandchildren, and others about the glories of our civilization, of who we are, and no reason to. I mean, we have been fed a diet of poisonous guilt for at least 70 years, maybe farther.
I've seen that license plate often. What are they remembering? What is
Isn't it
remembering?
never forgive, never forget? Isn't that what it is?
Not exactly. They have struggled to maintain the French language and culture in a sea of Anglos in North America. And it's not like we're going to get you. It's more like we must remember who we are, and we must remember to preserve ourselves and not just let ourselves all get absorbed into the larger North America.
Okay.
No, it's not manual.
It's actually worked, because every time I take a look at a towel, and I shower with my towel to dry off, it says made of COTON and COTTON. They write them both on there, so they've been successful in that regard.
I think it's interesting because I mean, I certainly consider myself a nationalist, but one of the things I deeply regret is the nationalist fervor of the 1920s in the United States led to the suppression of French in Louisiana. I think it would have been so completely cool. Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the 20th century, Louisiana had was much more like Quebec. It had French language schools, it had French language newspapers, court proceedings were conducted in French. It was a bilingual state, and I mean it's an interesting thing that really we have done damage, I think, to our European heritage. The 1920s was also, of course, when they were trying to suppress the teaching of German in large parts of the United States.
Right,
And
but weren't the French in Louisiana the wealthier class of people?
in southern there there's southern Louisiana and northern Louisiana. Southern Louisiana was French. The plantations were mostly French. New Orleans was an incredibly wealthy place, but even New Orleans was divided between French downtown and Anglo uptown, and so it's been a state with a split personality. But my grandmother remembers a headline, what she remembers right now. She remembered a headline in the newspaper when basically French was outlawed. La dernière leçon, the last lesson in French, and you know how so many people cried. And I mean I know people to this day in the countryside whose grandparents spoke French and they don't.
Well, maybe the way to resurrect French in Louisiana is to take all the Haitians and move them to Louisiana, and then we take over Haiti.
That is the worst idea you've ever had.
Well, that's not a good idea.
No, I mean,
But
I like the idea. I mean, I wonder, I mean, if we could start, I mean, they would probably suppress us so violently if we tried to start raising funds for purchase
Yeah.
white land. I mean, trying to give the white people of South Africa a way out by buying their land, and moving the Haitians there.
And have the South Africans move to Haiti. I love that idea.
It would be beautiful. And I mean, it's something that potentially Haiti is just corrupt enough, or totally corrupt enough, that we could start really snarfing up land probably fairly cheaply there, paying off politicians, and you know, offering these Haitians an opportunity of a lifetime to live in diamond mines. How's that?
Yeah, it would need to be compulsory, but I think that's the way to go. Okay, well, on that note,
Come the expropriation of Haiti.
yeah. All
And
right.
we will own our whiteness in Haiti and restore 500 as of this year 530 years of white settlement in Hispaniola.
Very good. Okay, well, on that note, I think I need to let you guys go.
Okay, and tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific.
Yes.
Okay.
that
well,
works, that works for me.
Do you want to meet Lloyd?
Not particularly.
You don't want to be part of this amazing biracial dialogue?
Well, I've certainly been part of many biracial dialogues, but mostly in other places.
Yeah.
Oh well.
We'll leave it up to you, Charles.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Good night in Canada. Good night in Los Angeles.
All right, bye.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for everything.
Seriously, okay, one before you leave, since you're here alone, would you be willing to meet with Lloyd? Continue this
Me?
dialogue we started with Bill last week?
I mean, how off the wall is he?
He's a gay black AIDS activist.
A gay black AIDS activist.
Yes.
This is a joke, right?
No. Would I joke to you about this? No,
I don't know.
from Chicago, or from Chicago relocated to New Orleans. Gay black AIDS activist relocated from Chicago to New Orleans. And I mean, Bill did it beautifully. You haven't seen the episode from last week? I thought I sent it to you, but
Oh, you did, and I've not watched it yet.
I think it's called Degrees of Separation. And
Right.
oh, any idea what happened to Sam Dixon? Why didn't he show up today?
No, Sam asked me a couple weeks ago, did I know you? And I said, yes, I known him for a number of years, and we collaborated on broadcasts over a several year period. Yes, he's solid and very well educated, so and trained as a lawyer. As you know, I mean, like I don't know. You just have to maybe remind him because he's very good. He's very articulate.
I'll give him a call after this because I thought he was going to be here. Basically, he seemed to respond positively to the invitation.
He too has a fixation on Haiti. Um, about 10 years ago, he wanted us to go. He wanted me, because I speak French, and several other people to go to Haiti. I said, well, why? Well, he wanted to tour it. And several of his cousins have been missionaries to Haiti. And he thought they were crazy for wasting their lives doing such stuff. And he's come back to the idea several times, but then the earthquake intervened, and that wasn't even going to be possible. And then I was.
Hello? Did I lose you?
I didn't, but he's interested. I mean, that's the point.
Okay, I was just looking. I thought I had his telephone number, but I apparently don't.
Do you need it?
Yeah, send it to me by text. Don't broadcast it while we're talking. That might cause problems for him.
Let me just get it here.
Text it to me because I'd like to.
Text. You don't want me to dictate it to you?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Okay. 404. Wait a sec. Is 404 Atlanta?
Yes, it is.
404 932 1405. And if that doesn't work, but the other's 404 846 0977.
1404. What is it? Second one.
One 404 846 0977.
Okay, I'll give him a call and see if I can get him in tomorrow. Because
Okay. Okay. Great.
Well, anyhow,
where did you do your legal training?
my legal training,
Yeah.
University of Chicago.
So you trained. You're not only were a lawyer, but you're also a PhD in anthropology.
Yes, Harvard PhD, University of Chicago JD.
Wow. As they say in French, formidable.
It's amazing. My life's been a total disaster ever since. What can I tell you?
Ever since what?
My life's been a total disaster ever since. What can I tell you?
Oh, ever since. Okay. Oh, okay.
I was basically a very good student. What can I say? I was a good student. So should have stayed a student my whole life. Anyhow, and in a sense, I have. I've done it.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Good night. See you tomorrow. Mañana.
Thanks for everything.
And we'll be thinking all year of the 530th anniversary of the white settlement of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. 530 years since Columbus sailed the ocean blue, year of 14